Welcome to another Rugby League Down South. On this episode, the London Independent Supporters Trust, the latest from them, New Broncos assistant coach Joe Grima, and Barnet and The Hive chairman Tony Kleanthous updates us on the situation with how things are ahead of the new season and Broncos moving to The Hive. Also details too of a recording of this podcast with fans that it's taking place this week, Tuesday night if you're available. I know it's late, but rldownsouth@gmail.com if you want to be part of the podcast 2, which we're recording in central London on Tuesday evening. If you are around and you're up for it, email rldownsouth@gmail.com and I'll be able to give you all the details. That's the same email address for any comments you'd like to send about the programme. And as ever, on Twitter, I'm at Ian Ramsdale, or use the hashtag RLDS for Rugby League Down South. Simple as that. So this podcast looking at the Broncos Fans Forum, which they held on Saturday. A very open and honest discussion, really, and not as heated as I thought it may have got. But Gus Mackay of Broncos, Chief Executive, and Blake Solly, who's got a very long job title, who works for the RFL, and basically licenses and all sorts of stuff. But Blake Solly, who did help secure the deal for Broncos to move in with Barnet playing at the Hive. So he was there at the Fans Forum as well. David Lawrenson, the media man for London, chairing the discussions. Tony Kleanthous, the owner of the Hive at Barnet, was also there. The Barnet game from Saturday was called off very early that morning, so he was at the ground, wasn't intending to be at the Hive that morning, but he was there, so popped in, and we'll hear from him a little later. He did warm himself to the Broncos fans. I thought of anyone, he probably came off the best during the day. David Hughes also there, the Broncos owner, wasn't part of the panel, but sort of stood down the side to monitor what was going on and chipped in with a couple of responses as well. Tony Ray also turned up. All these people not billed to be there, but eventually arrived. Fresh from seeing his side in a training session or training game with the Scholars, while some of his squad, of course, played Hemel. And the new assistant coach for the Broncos as well, Joe Grima, fresh from the plane, just landed from Australia, went straight to training, and then came straight to the Fans Forum, as we'll hear with an interview with him just later on. Now, as for the Fans Forum itself, I can't really go into everything that was said. They covered signings, the club, the youth setup, the merchandise, the links with Barnet, all sorts of stuff. If you would like to see a reasonably comprehensive list, you can go to my Twitter feed, so twitter.com/Ian Ramsdale, and scroll back to Saturday. What time did it start? It was a 2 o'clock start for the Fans Forum. So scroll all the way back to 2 o'clock and have a look. So twitter.com/Ian Ramsdale for the main points, really, of what happened in the Fans Forum on Saturday. I think there is a Broncos or a London Rugby League website story planned as well, of which I've taken the photos for, actually. I have a photographer there, so I'm going to have to email some photos to David Lawrenson tomorrow, and you may well see that on Monday on the websites. I also started something of a can of worms as well with the owner of Salford Red Devils, not the Salford City Red, Salford Red Devils, Dr. Marwan Kukash. I clarified the situation as Blake Solly did at the RFL, saying that Broncos do have a London weighting in terms of the salary cap. It works out as 100k at maximum. I think it's worked out as initially as a percentage, but then capped at £100,000. Not that they use it, but it kicked off something of a storm. You can have a look at that on my Twitter pages as well. You may well see some of that break into the media over the next week or so as well. I'm sure Mr. Kukash won't keep quiet about that over the next week or two. Had a tweet at Ian Ramsdale from Gary saying, "Good, open, honest forum. Kleanthous, Tony Ray, and Blake Solly came across well. Gus Mackay and David Hughes chipped in with good points. Bottom line is, it's going to be tough. See you at Widnes," he says. It was well attended, the forum. I'd say 50 or so, for 60 fans were there. One of them was Steve Newcombe, who was setting up a new London Independent Supporters Trust. He posed a question at the forum, which was well received by the RFL and the Broncos about embracing a potential supporters trust in London. So once the forum had finished, I grabbed a few words with him afterwards about what had happened in the forum and plans to make the supporters trust official. And just worth mentioning here, I did offer initially to the Broncos to record the forum and sort of post it as an audio podcast or even a video. It's not something they went for in the end, so that's why you were not hearing from the forum in this podcast. But to be fair, if you do want to know the details, you can scroll back on my Twitter feed, and this is a discussion which pretty much sums up the main points of what happened and the feeling of the fans afterwards. So here is Steve Newcombe, who's setting up the London Independent Supporters Trust.
Well, Steve, you're the man that's currently driving the Supporters Trust at the moment and the formation of that. Before we get on to that, we just had a fans forum. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it's you've got to be encouraged. I'm impressed that Tony Ray has been so blunt. You know, we've got a big task ahead of us this year, and if we play 5 drives and a kick and tackle our hearts out, that'll do me. Thank you very much.
What was the overriding feeling, do you think, coming out of that? Because it does seem to have, for me, reinstalled a little bit of positivity. It's still a long way to go, but people are a bit more connected now, I think. Yeah,
there was a couple of people who tried to sort of pick on the past, and what's gone is gone, and whatever mistakes the club's made, they've made. And I think they did start to front up today that they have made mistakes and they're willing to put them right. And maybe the Supporters Trust can help short term as well as long term, because fundamentally the trust is about the long term future of the game.
I guess nobody will try to sort of cover over what's happened before. There was a bit of appreciation, I think, from the fans and also from the people up front to say the club weren't in a great situation. There was only a couple of people being employed. It wasn't the situation they could have got messages out there, although I'm sure that there were possibly ways that they could have done it. But it seems like now there is kind of a bit of a line drawn now. People need to work together for the future.
Yep, we are where we are. It's unfortunate that the 3-year commitment hasn't been followed on, but we are where we are. It's a great facility here. I hope we can build on it. I thought Tony from Barnet was very good. He seems like the sort of guy you can have a rapport with. We've got a lot of young guys who are good, young English players. We've got to support them and hope they get through the season. Let's get ourselves in the playoffs, hopefully, but at least in the top 12, and we can dismiss all this rubbish about the Championship then, can't we?
I was going to say, what is the achievement that should be looked at for this year? Top 12 really is what the club need to aim for.
I think top 12, I suppose looking at it from the head side, if we made the top 12, it would be one of the greatest achievements in our sports history. Being a Northampton person, I remember Joe Mercer saying that the greatest achievement of the 1960s was Northampton Town playing in the First Division, not England winning the World Cup. And I think if we're in the top 12, we're going to be rivaling that.
And very positive as well, that in the forum, you mentioned the question about the Supporters Trust, and it seems like both the RFL and the club very, very open to that.
Yeah. And of course, Blake mentioned the fact that Hunslet are a supporter owned. Rochdale Hornets are supporter owned as well, and won their way into the Championship. They're doing a fantastic job. Long term, I'd like to see our supporters taking a management and ownership of the club. But we'll start where we start. I think we can really give value for communicating with the fans and for working with the community here and in South West London, because I think there was a point made in the forum about we don't want to see the work we've done in South West London being abandoned.
And I guess as well, you know, with the Supporters Trust, it was initially looked at because you were thinking the club might not exist, we need to do something. Can we own the club? At the moment, there is a future now. You don't have to own the club, but something you can look at in the future. But first of all, just a relationship to build that communication link. Yeah,
you're right. I mean, we sat there watching the club disintegrating, and you get to a point where you think, me turning up's not good enough. So I put my head over the parapet, if you like, and a good few people have come on board as well. So, yeah, short term, we're stable, but I think long term, I honestly believe that the supporters' involvement is best for the long term future of the club and the game.
Why do you care so much?
Oh, mate, once you've seen this game, I say I'm from Northampton. I was a soccer boy through and through. I used to watch rugby league on the telly when I was a kid, and I went to a Great Britain Test match at Wembley in 1990, and I've never watched a soccer match since. It's great, and people will know who are listening to this. When you become a rugby league fan, all you ever think about is rugby league from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed.
And for the Supporters Trust, what is the future now? What are you doing? Because do you need people to become members and for people to sign up, and the hope that then the club will recognise it as a body and will communicate with it? Is that right?
Well, yeah, there's a procedure to go through because it will be a legal entity. So what we're planning is to hold an open meeting before the Warrington game here at the Hive and we've had indications that we will be hosted here, which is very good of the club and of the Hive. If that meeting passes a resolution to form a trust, then we'll get up and running and take it from there.
And so if people want to know more, ideally, they need to come to that meeting on the 8th, did you say, of March?
Yeah, the Warrington game, so it's a Sunday. I think we'll probably be
the 9th, sorry.
The 9th, yeah. 1 o'clock or 1:30 start, so that we're finished, ready for the game. I've got a website whose address I can't remember at the moment, but you can email me at rllist@me.com if you want to find out what's going on.
And I think if they search online, they'll be able to find it.
They'll find me. Yeah.
So,
it is the organisation at the moment is called RL List. Yeah, London Rugby League Independent Supporters Trust. So it's RL List, and then hopefully we'll have a formal entity after that open meeting before the Warrington game.
And what do you think then for the season? We've talked about what would be realistic. Tony talking about potential of more players, signed a couple from Australia that are going to arrive soon with no names yet. Do you think the squad is capable of performing well this year, or is it going to be a tough year?
My heart says that it will, my head says it won't. I just hope my heart wins. I just can't wait to watch the football again. And as I said, if we play 5 drives and kick and tackle our hearts out, I'll be perfectly happy. If they lose a game, but they walk off the pitch with no energy left in them, that will do for me.
So that's Steve Newcombe, the man behind the drive for the London Independent Supporters Trust. He gave you all the details there as if you'd like to be involved. But that Warrington game on the Sunday, the 9th of March, that's when the movement that will be proposed to set up a supporters trust. If you'd like to be part of that or hear the discussion, then you have to be at the Hive at that Sunday afternoon. I guess as well, it may well tie in with with Hemel and Scholars in particular over the future. I'm not sure about Steve's plans, but you'll be able to find out more, and you'll hear more from them, I'm sure, on the programme over the next few weeks and months. So the season not too far around the corner, is it? I had to write 75 words on the Broncos' chances, in inverted commas, for 2014 in a piece for the BBC website this week. What do you say in 75 words? I asked people on Twitter to give me their 140 character view. Andrew said, this season the Broncos have 2 chances, a dog's chance and no chance. He puts in brackets 13 words. Good luck with the other 62, Ramo. Come on, you Broncos. Andrew, thank you for that. My 75 words, if you'll bear with me for the length of time it takes to read, it isn't long. I said every pundit has London Broncos down to finish bottom and be relegated. It's not hard to see why. Having narrowly avoided administration, retaining just 12 players and recruiting rapidly in the last 2 months, it's difficult to see how they'll be truly competitive this year. I think their youth, energy and team spirit as underdogs will win them a few games this season. But untested as they are, avoiding the drop will please the realistic London fans. Be interested to hear your thoughts. I mentioned it on Twitter saying, give us your 140 character assessment. Jeffrey saying, Captain Cook and the unproven, but the united squad fly the capital flag and prove all the doubters wrong and avoid relegation. Interesting from Jeffrey. Garnon says, I'd have done it in one word, pray. John says, being realistic, we can stand together and fight. Matt says, really like the new kit. The lack of expectation and pressure might be a bonus. Lack of structures and familiarity, not so. Chris uses just one word, #dig deep. And London Broncos Loyal says, a more passionate squad, nothing to lose. Nothing expected out of them for 2014, so we will surprise a few. Diane on Twitter saying, at Ian Ramsdale, it's a really tough ask for the Broncos in 2014. They desperately need some experience and some grunt up front. Stuart saying low expectations, but could surprise a few. And Andy saying, I reckon London Broncos will with a surprise package this season and shock a few teams and make the playoffs. I thought we'd finish with a reasonably positive one. Now, moving on, the congratulations to the South West London Chargers. They beat the Torvain Tigers of Wales 12-6 in the first round of the Challenge Cup. Sounded like a great game as well. They're now going to host the Milford Marlins at Chiswick on the weekend of 22nd and 23rd of Feb in the second round of the Challenge Cup. Milford beat Saddleworth Rangers on Saturday by a narrow 2 points. 2018 should be another cracking game down at Chiswick. So the South West London Chargers are marching on. And wow, they'd love to make it into the third round, wouldn't they? So best of luck to the South West London Chargers. We'll catch up with them before the next round game. As I said, 22nd and 23rd of Feb in Chiswick. I said we'll follow whoever wins in each game. Now, each subsequent tie will follow the winners through all the way through to the final. So we're still with the South West London Chargers now as we go into the second round of the Challenge Cup. And if you'd ever like to read quite what exactly is happening in London Rugby League, okay, thank you for listening to the podcast. Your support is truly grateful, truly well received even by myself. But one man who knows absolutely everything that's going on and writes about it in a reasonably regular blog is David Lawrenson of the RFL. He writes his Loro on London blogs on the London Rugby League website. Do a search for it, find it, read it, and check back there every week. It's a good roundup for what's happening, gives you all the details as well. Top man, top blog, and really good work from Loro. So check out Loro on London on the London Rugby League website. Now, back to the podcast then. And while we were there, Joe Grima, the new assistant coach for Broncos, turned up. He'd been invited to say good day, as it was, by Tony Ray, saying get him up front. So after a forum had finished, I thought I'd pop over and say hi, introduce myself, tell him about what goes on here, and get his feelings. And bear in mind, he had literally just stepped off the plane. So here is myself in conversation with Joe Grima.
Well, also here at the Fans Forum is the new assistant coach for the London Broncos, and Joe Grima. Joe, you've just arrived off the flight. At what time did you get in?
I got in at 6:30 this morning.
Oh, you've come straight here, have you?
From the flight, I went straight to training, and from training straight here.
You had no rest then?
No rest.
How are you feeling?
I feel great, actually. I think the cool weather. I jumped on a plane from Sydney 30 hours ago, and it was 37 degrees. Getting off, and it was 5.5, 6 degrees. That kept me up.
Well, at least you know that the hot weather is arriving, or is coming here, rather than just finishing in Australia. It won't be quite as hot here as it has been there, but it's on its way.
Absolutely, and that was the agreement between my wife and 2 kids. They're not coming out until spring, so I've got 10 weeks of hard work before they arrive.
Tony Ray was saying as well that it was Jamie Soward that initially recommended he talk to you about coaching. When was your relationship with Jamie?
I coached Jamie at the St George Illawarra Dragons the past 2 seasons, and Jamie moved on from the Dragons last year and was fortunate enough to pick up a contract for the remainder of 2013 with the Broncos. So
he was sensational over here last year. He was brilliant, and the fans really liked him. I mean, he's a fantastic player, and I guess did he tell you about what's on offer here, what it is?
He did. He did tell me what I was walking into. He did tell me that
because it seems like an honest bloke as well.
He's an honest bloke, and that's what's probably he's a very misunderstood. People that don't know Jamie see Jamie different light to people that do know Jamie, and you couldn't be more exact about Jamie about his truthfulness. But he did tell me what I was walking into, which even gave me more of a buzz to come here to give it an opportunity, give it a go.
It's a different challenge, I think, here is to what you've had before.
Considerably. I think the past 2 months has been difficult, to say the least, for the Broncos. However, I look at it as an opportunity rather than a challenge. And working with Tony Ray and just having the 2 weeks conversations, the 2 a.m. Skype calls with Tony Ray, it's just made me rekindle my passion for coaching once again.
And I saw Tony talking about how they're playing and the structures and the systems that they'll use. You were nodding along in agreement. I guess you've been either seeing videos or you've been helping or you've been part of the process already.
Yeah, 100%. The last two weeks, been doing some due diligence and looking at some footage that Tony had sent me. And we have to play to our strengths, and our strengths are keeping it simple, playing at the ruck and things like that. So we're harnessing those strengths and combating the opposition's weaknesses with those.
I was just going to actually just ask you how you were going to approach things. I guess you've covered that now, but what sort of rugby will they play? What are you going to look to get them to do? You like to say, keep it simple, work it, but I mean, it's obviously going to be a different style with the team that they've got, the experience that's there.
Sure, the style that we're looking to accomplish is high energy, meaning a lot of support, a lot of energy around the football, but minimising the risk management of making error or turning the ball over. So I guess it's going to be a boring style of football to start the season, but we're identifying that we want a high completion rate and kick into the corners, and combat where we feel we're a little bit deficient in size with field position, sort of gaining our territory in field position and just trying to win them through that way.
And your family arriving in a couple of weeks, I guess it's going to be a bit of a up and down couple of weeks, isn't it, before you get yourself sorted? But you're looking forward to sort of bedding in here, I guess, getting a bit of rest first of all.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. Tony and I spoke about it. My wife and 2 kids aren't coming out for another 10 weeks, which which would allow me 100% concentration. With Tony, working with Tony and the players, just giving it 100% to the Broncos.
Well, best of luck with it. I hope you enjoy yourself.
Thanks very much.
It's going to be a tough season ahead, isn't it, for the squad, for Joe and for Tony, but best of luck to them. Great to get his thoughts as well, having just arrived from Australia, and just after we stopped recording, he said to me, You're good. Really enjoyed the interview, so hopefully I've made a nice connection there, and we'll hear more, I'm sure, from Joe Grima as the season goes on. Nice little praise from Joe after that. I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as maybe he did. I also chatted with David Hughes as well, the Broncos owner, not on tape. To be fair, I always chat with David on tape, and I just wanted to have a chat with him, really, and see what he'd say without a microphone under his nose, really. So we had a good chat, very open discussion. I'm sure I'll drop comments and things that he said in over the year. I don't want to sort of paraphrase the conversation that we had really at this point, but basically he did say that last year he'd had enough, thought they didn't want to do it anymore, but in the end didn't want to see the London Broncos name die. So I think he's probably given away far more than he'd like to have done in terms of the business and what's happening, and said he is possibly looking at a buy-in from Kleanthous from next year. But we'll see how that goes. I think it's very early days at the moment. Kleanthous still very much finding his feet. In fact, as you'll hear now, the man who owns Barnet and owns the Hive complex where Broncos will be playing this season, I sat him down for a chat. This interview actually is going to be used for a London BBC London News TV piece, fingers crossed, which will air on Friday this week, if you want to catch it. BBC One, 6:30 on Friday night. We're preparing a piece on the Broncos and the new season and how they're going to be ground sharing with the Broncos at the Hive. So it's a bit of a roundabout interview. I try to probe Tony down certain lines to try and get a nice quote from him to use on the TV. So apologies if it's a bit repetitive in parts, but it's a nice, relaxed chat with Tony Kleanthous. Just thought I'd find out how things have been going with him in the partnership so far. So here is the TV interview. Because it is a TV interview, you can't really hear my questions. They might be very quiet in the background, but hopefully you'll hear what Tony says. To be fair, that's far more important. So here is Tony Kleanthous. Apologies you missed my questions.
Their first season at the Hive, and we're all behind them here. We've got the Hive itself has a huge fan base, and obviously you've got the Barnet FC supporters and the London Bees fans all getting behind them as well. So we're expecting it to be a bit of fun. The only thing I'm a bit confused about is why they're kicking off in February, because I thought it was a summer league. But if the rain stops, it might be a good game.
And has it worked out as far as you are at the moment, how you thought it was going to? Because I guess you had things like kit to sort, you've had the membership to sort and stuff like that. Has it all run to plan?
No, well, what they've done brilliantly is left us with all the work. So we've got none of it's gone to plan. We've got a hell of a lot to do: ticketing, memberships, merchandise, kit, stewarding, you name it, it's landed on our doorstep, and it's added to a pretty heavy workload anyway. But that's what we do. It's quite, actually the more work you throw at us, the more we enjoy it round here. We just get on with it. So, good. Can't wait.
And I guess, why was it, if we go back to what we talked about previously, but why was it that you said, all right, let's give it a go?
I don't know. I must have been crazy. No, look, they were in a bad way. There's no doubt about it. They needed some help, and we were in a position to provide that support. I believe there should be rugby league in London, in the south. I've watched the sport on television, not live. I've watched the sport, and I've thought, wow, this is exciting. I think it's an opportunity for them and for us to grow together. So. No, I'm looking forward to it.
But there must have been people who had conversations with you that made you realise how important a rugby league team in London is.
When you realise it's important, it's when you find when you come across so many people who are so upset about the possibility of losing it. And, that's what the fans of the Broncos need to do. They need to get behind their team, because there's actually quite a lot of them out there, and for whatever reason, they've become disenfranchised. And actually, they need to just get behind the club and give them some support and help them grow. They may, we've all done things wrong in the past. I've done several things wrong with Barnet Football Club. But we live and learn from our experiences, and, for me, they have an opportunity to start afresh. So I see it as put the past behind you, get behind them, new start, new beginning. I doubt, I don't know how well they'll do on the field, because they've had to put a team together from scratch with no time. But who cares? Let's just have a good time and enjoy the sport. Sometimes, and I see it in football a hell of a lot, we forget that sport was supposed to be fun, and we need to start enjoying sport again.
Well, I said before about yourself having met you and chatted with you, you seem to all of a sudden, or you seem to already get the idea of why rugby league in London is important.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's just a good game. And, for me, I'm come from a football background, but not everybody can travel around the country, and we only play home once every fortnight. And then we go through 3-4 months where there's no football at all. So I think it's fantastic I'd like to see the fans of Barnet Football Club get behind this, get behind the Broncos, and vice versa. The Broncos get behind Barnet FC. I mean, let's face it, we're very similar clubs in one respect. We're London clubs, and we're always given a hard time. So, from my perspective, we're always fighting against the odds. And, that's kind of what we do very well here. So being the underdog, hey, that's us. We're happy to be the underdog. We'll keep having a go.
And can you vocalise maybe why or what reasons you think rugby league is important in London?
I mean, for me, I look at it as... I have to look at it from my perspective with the Hive. And I have to say, for us here, it's an area that's untapped, because I look around the area and I see rugby union, but I don't see any rugby football league. And yet, when you look at the sport, it's a running sport. It's not quite as stop-start and slow as rugby union is, and it kind of fits with football quite well. And it has a kind of vibrancy about it. I don't know, I have a view that as a sport it's going to grow. I believe that, because you can very easily feel comfortable with it. So, to me, there's an opportunity there, and they're right to exploit it.
And as a businessman as well, you must see the potential in something like this, like you say, an untapped resource. The fact that rugby league should be a lot bigger, really, in London than it is. There's a good opportunity there, isn't there, to build something?
Yeah. I mean, look, you're right, absolutely. But what people have to appreciate, when we look at sport and business together, there's no mix there. When you're in business, your sole objective is to make money. That's it, full stop. It seems to me, and certainly in the 20 years I've been in sport, the sole objective seems to be to waste money. So I just can't tie the two. People try, but it's pointless. The fact is, we use business to feed the sport, and the sport helps you build a big business. But for me, I think I can't look at it as a businessman. It's just pointless. I just look at it as it's a sport that would help support the business we have, and the business we have can help support the sport, and they feed off each other.
And in terms of that London aspect as well, what were people telling you about why Broncos should continue? When people were meeting with you and were explaining why it was important that a future was found.
You cannot have a sport that just works on the M62 corridor. When you look at the RFL, you say, well, they're doing absolutely the right things. They want to globalise their sport, nationalise and globalise, if you like. And it's absolutely the right way forward. I love the fact that they've got a team from Wales and they've got a team from France playing. It would be nice if they could have a German team, and it's just great. And let's face it, I mean, London is the place. On planet Earth, London sits totally on its own, in my view. I mean, I'm Greek Cypriot. I've been involved with England and the FA, and I'm English passport. But at the end of the day, really, I'm a Londoner. And there's something about being a Londoner that there's just nothing like it on the planet. And it's just so multicultural. There's always something happening. It's just the place to be. And you just cannot have a sport without London being involved. It just doesn't work for me. So having London Broncos and the RFL in London is the correct strategic step for them to take.
And that's it then for another Rugby League Down South programme. That's Tony Kleanthous, the man who owns The Hive, where Broncos will ground share, and of course owns Barnet, who will also play there. Barnet Bees he mentions as well. That's the ladies' team that will be playing in the same ground as well this year. They play a summer season, so they'll be playing their games. And to be fair, if you want to take your family to see a more family-friendly game of football, go and see women's football. Honestly, it's okay, maybe the skill level isn't quite what the men's game is, but it's a much more family-friendly day out for me. I'd much rather take my family to go see a women's football game rather than a men's one. So there you go. You get it as part of your season ticket or membership, as it is, with the Hive as well. And also, just finally mention the podcast, which is basically the idea came from a couple of people sitting around a table discussing the Broncos and the London Rugby League scene and how it is. Basically like a discussion of people in a pub, which is why we called it a pubcast rather than a podcast, because we'll record it and we'll publish it on Tuesday evening this week. So if you are around in central London on Tuesday evening, you want to come along and be part of it, get yourself on the podcast, then let me know. Email rldownsouth@gmail.com. I know it's late notice. I've mentioned it briefly in a couple of other podcasts, but let us know if you're free. rldownsouth@gmail.com, and we'll try and accommodate you on Tuesday if you can make it. It'd be great if you can get along, and you'll hear that later this week. The thoughts of the fans ahead of a new season kicking off on the weekend. How are you feeling? Get your thoughts as well on the email, on Twitter @IanRamsdale, #RLDS. More of that later in the week. But thank you very much for listening to another Rugby League Down South podcast, and we'll be back on Tuesday with another one.